All righty.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane, and I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts. And I'm very excited to be here for this series with Jeff DePaoli, the host of That Halloween podcast. And if you've been with us before, you know he knows everything about horror and Disney and haunted places and princesses and, you name it, he's got it. So he's
Sure.
here tonight with David Markland from Scream Fest. Is that right?
No, Midsummer Scream.
Midsummer Scream. I knew there was a scream in there somewhere. And we are going to be talking all about it. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. David, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I'm going to go off screen, but I do want to tell people to put questions in the Q&A if you have them for David, and Jeff will moderate them at the end of his conversation with David. Have a good one.
All right, thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you, Mina and David. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. Full disclosure, before we get going here, I have been working with Midsummer Scream since 2018, but before that, I was a fan. So you'll hear me gushing about Midsummer Scream. Yes, I am involved with it, but it is genuine gushing. But I just wanted to put that out front. Fair enough, right, David?
Mhm.
And at some point during the conversation today, we're actually going to be revealing a panel that will be part of the event this year. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But I'm just start things off with a little sizzle reel to give folks a taste of what Midsummer Scream is. So let me know if the audio does not work for some reason.
How's everyone doing today at Midsummer Scream? Let me hear you make some noise!
My goodness. Are you tired yet, David? Just looking at all that work? That is a quick little overview of Midsummer Scream. David Markland here is the executive director and co-founder of Midsummer Scream. And this is what, year six, not year six, but event six for it. Is that correct?
No, it's their seventh year of doing
Seventh
this big
year.
event.
Okay, seventh year. And of course, the years got a little wonky with the pandemic and such. But, obviously we didn't start this big. Can you talk a little bit about the origins of Midsummer Scream and just kind of where the idea came from for it's certainly not the only or first horror convention, but it definitely sets itself apart. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the origins of it.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the event's in Los Angeles, but I'm from New England and Connecticut, and moved out here when I was, 21. And quickly became apparent, like, Halloween here is not this wasn't the same. It just doesn't look the same. We don't have the same vibes. There's no foliage, and just it was definitely a little more manufactured. Not as It just didn't feel Halloween here. And then over the years, I started to really look for things and started a website called Creepy LA, where I track all of the smaller haunted houses and ghost stories around LA. Because if LA has one thing, it's a lot of good ghost stories. Um, and through it all, I was working in film and TV and entertainment, and then became part of live events. And that's sort of what happens, gelling together my contacts and growing, knowledge base and expertise and passion for all things spooky became Midsummer Scream.
Excellent. Like you said, we both grew up in New England, and it is a very different vibe. But I always say we kind of grew up in the best places, or I shouldn't say grew up, but we both lived in the best places, because I do believe New England is some of the best Halloween experiences that exist, but also Southern California. Like Southern California has a ton to offer. And if I were to pick a third place, I'd probably say Orlando. But I don't know, it is different, but can you talk a little bit about Southern California Halloween? Because that is very much an emphasis of what Midsummer Scream is. It's celebrating Southern California Halloween.
Um, you like talk about the difference between LA and anywhere else?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sorry, is my screen is still showing the video screen? It
Yeah.
still has a screen share on, so
Oh,
which is great. I love the artwork we have for this year by an artist named Suspiria Land, but it's all that's showing on my screen right now.
oh, you don't see me at all?
I see you in a small box, but just making sure people see my beautiful face as I talk.
There we go. How about that?
I don't know if they could or if they really wanted to, but uh,
I'll put it back when I need the next
yeah,
slide.
you're like, it's enough, David. No, I mean, LA, I mean, I'm a big booster. That's what Midsummer Scream is, that we like to promote that LA is really, I think, really the best place in the country for Halloween. And go to New England, go to Salem, it's fantastic. But in terms of like nonstop Halloween entertainment, LA is great. We have the number one thing is we have a ton of home haunts, which are people who decorate their yards and they look like walk-through theme parks from either Disney or Universal. And often because they're made by the same people who work at those theme parks or studios, and they're just everywhere around LA. We have so many suburbs that you could spend your Halloween season just seeing the decorations people put up, and they get really into it. It's very professional level. Some of them have, cast. They have stories. It's pretty amazing. And on top of that, we have the theme parks. We have, Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. We have Knott's Scary Farm, the grandfather of all these theme park haunts. Uh, Dark Harbor, the most haunted ship in the world, Queen Mary, has a haunted house on it. So we have Six Flags Magic Mountain. And of course, there's Disneyland with the Oogie Boogie Bash and Haunted Mansion year round, even though it's under refurbishment right now. And that's just for like things to go out and do. And of course, we have the movies are made here, so we have lots of film locations. You can go visit from Halloween. You can go drive around Haddonfield, where they shot the original films. And again, I love the ghost stories. Hollywood history is just all sorts of fun. I don't know if the word fun with ghost stories is necessarily the good word, because it's a dark history. It's serial killers and gory murders and the grotesque, but it's our history. So we do love to celebrate it and go and see it and creep ourselves out.
And one of the things I'll add about Southern California, and I feel like this is just keeps getting stronger and stronger as time goes on, is it is very much not a seasonal thing here anymore. Like, of course, when Halloween season comes along, it amps up. But I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that, like, almost every weekend of the year, if not every weekend of the year, there is some Halloween or haunt related thing to attend. That's fair,
Yeah.
right? And Midsummer Scream, it is in the middle of the summer. And it's funny because I believe the original intention was kind of like a preview of what's to come for the Halloween
Hmm.
season, and still is. But it is funny because the events keep creeping earlier and earlier. and therefore getting closer and closer to Midsummer Scream,
Yeah.
which is kind of funny. But
Yeah,
Dave,
and I think, I mean, that's definitely the intent was for the theme parks and the bigger Halloween events to sort of announce what their plans for this year. But even if it isn't, even if more and more people are announcing earlier, it definitely is still for people the gateway, the kickoff for the season, and it's where everybody, it's their first big chance to come and everybody to get together who loves Halloween, whether they work on a haunted attraction or they are just fans. It's where all of those people come together.
absolutely. David, I am going to shrink your lovely face for the slideshow again, so forgive me. But I want to talk about all of the different sort of offerings and segments that are available at Midsummer Scream. You can take a look here. This is dare I say, small segment of the show floor. This is kind of, this takes up the biggest footprint. But one of the things I love so much about the show floor is that I know that you're very particular when it comes to curating the show floor. You want to make sure there's like a wide variety of not only entertainment and photo ops and such, but also the product that's being sold. So I'd love to hear you talk more about that thought process and why that's so important to you.
Yeah, I mean, we have, over 300 vendors. And the trick is with that, I mean, it's a lot. So it means we can fit in a lot, but we still have to, there's so many people who are into this. We still have to like turn plenty of people away, unfortunately. So kind of mentally, what I'm going to is trying to hit the different segments of the Halloween and spooky community. A portion of that are people who make haunted houses. So I want to make sure I have plenty of things for people, whether they're, character creators, like they put on makeup or they're designing with prosthetics. So the special effects makeup, definitely want to have some of those every year. People who make different props and effects for haunted houses, whether they're a home haunter or a pro, we want to definitely have as much of that as we can. And on top of that, we've got tons of people selling apparel, from t-shirts to dresses to purses, for the people, for our large crowd that just love to dress up, or that's just their style, is the spooky style. Toys and games and film companies coming out promoting. I'm trying to both hit this diverse. I mean, you think of Halloween community and you probably, a lot of people just immediately think people just love horror, but it crosses boundaries to people who, they may not like to be scared, but they happen to like Casper, or they like Monster High, or Beetlejuice is as scary as they can get, but they still love it with a passion. So we want to hit them, as well as the people who are into slashers and gore, and bring them all to this event. And with 300 vendors, there's enough spots to hit everybody and provide plenty for everyone. But still, it is important to make sure I'm having as much variety as possible.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a huge part of the reason why it's my favorite day of the year and my favorite holiday, is because you can hit all of those segments. And I always get upset when someone's like, "Oh, I don't really like Halloween." I'm like, "Are you sure?" Because like you can be into horror, you can just be into candy, you can just be into, dressing up. There's so many different segments of it. So I think you're right. I think people's heads immediately go to horror, but it's much, much bigger than that. And the
Mhm.
show floor represents all of it, which is really cool. But I want to talk about the Hall of Shadows, because how did this idea first come about? I know it's always been part of the event, but was this kind of like a given from day one, or was this like an inspirational aha moment at one point?
Yeah, I mean, going into this event, we knew that it's something that we wanted to have, and there's enough. The people who make haunted houses, whether they're home haunters or pros, they just love to do it. And so Rick West, who's the creative director of our team, he immediately, before we even launched the event, was reaching out to people and asking if they'd want to set up either a display or a small-ish haunted house, and got a lot of interest for that. It's an art. People who make haunted houses or home haunts, it is an art. Just the same as somebody does a painting or does a sculpture. They want it to be seen and experienced. It's a different kind of art, of course. And for most of these folks, the only time they get to see their stuff really seen is going to be Halloween night, or sometimes a couple of weeks during the Halloween season when they have it up, and only by people who are going to drive by. But here, we knew that with the Hall of Shadows, we could tell them that they're going to get tens of thousands of people to appreciate what they do and enjoy it. And that inspired them to do that.
And folks, you saw a little bit of this in the sizzle reel. You saw people walking through some dark haunts and stuff, and that would all be in the Hall of Shadows here. And this is quite literally just a portion of the show floor that is like completely blackened and filled with fog and lit beautifully. And these mostly home haunters, correct?
Yeah, I mean, through the years we have had some pros, and this year, I can't say much more than stay tuned. We have a couple of big announcements, especially for this year, but it tends to largely be home haunts or smaller independent haunted attractions.
Very cool. So yeah, it's definitely a fun area. I know, once again, depending on the segment of Halloween fan that you are, there are some people that it's like their immediate go-to is the Hall of Shadows. So it's definitely a big part of the event.
And one thing I think for people who come or they don't know I mean, the challenge is whether if a theme park spends 6 months setting up a haunted attraction at the theme park, home haunters, they'll spend, 2 or 3 months doing it. And the Hall of Shadows, because we only have the convention center for a weekend, they have to like pre-build it and pre-get it ready, but they set this thing up in a day. And so it's amazing what they can do with to set something up in, literally 24 hours, and to just blow away our crowds.
Very cool. Another big part of the event is the Screaming Room Film Festival, and this is put together by our buddy Norm over at Horror Buzz. You want to talk a bit about the Screaming Room? And I don't even know, did Norm bring this concept to you, or was this something that you wanted as part of the event?
I honestly, right now, I don't recall the origins of this. I think,
Always
we
been part of
wanted,
it, right?
I don't think it was there the first year.
Okay.
Or if it was in a smaller capacity, but however it happened, at whatever point, whether it was Norm Gidney who came to me or I came to him, it just took off. He hit the ground running. He has his own team that reviews hundreds and hundreds of films. It's all short films. And so it's a lot of stuff that they have to pour over to try to bring the best possible horror and spooky shorts that pack 2.5 days now of our screening room lineup.
Yeah, and there's like official voting that goes on by the audience that views it, and they have prizes at the end of it and stuff. So it is like, a legitimate little film festival happening right during Midsummer Scream. And I mean, listen, film festivals are something that people just go to, as its own thing. So I
Mhm.
don't know if this is the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are some like horror film buffs out there that buy a ticket to Midsummer Scream just to spend the whole weekend
No,
at the Screaming Room.
I mean, we do get that. We do get people that's where they focus their time. I mean, the event itself is Midsummer Scream. Our hope is, our target person is somebody who hits the show floor for a couple hours and checks out a couple panels, probably checks out 2 or 3 that, the screaming room blocks over the course of a weekend. But no matter what, the whole event is intended that way. There's no reason why you don't get you don't have options at every hour of something different to do, whether you're tired and want to sit down or be more engaged. But the screaming room provides just nonstop a chance just to sit down and enjoy some fantastic original content.
Yeah, I would say the biggest complaint probably with the event is that people can't do everything they want to do. I mean, the amount of stuff that's all going on at the same time is insane. And you do have to pick and choose what you're going to attend and or miss. And then, hopefully you'll get to do it a future year. But I mean, the event changes so much from year to year that
Yeah,
sometimes it's your one shot, but that's just the nature of conventions and kind of the beauty of them and the fragility of them, which
yeah.
is nice. Now, this next thing, I don't know if I should say it's your favorite thing or not, but I know you love it.
Ah, the Black Cat Lounge.
Yes.
Yeah,
Where did this come from?
this was Jackie Crutterfield with their team. I don't know if she had an existing relationship, but she had the idea to basically have a room called the Black Cat Lounge where initially we wanted to have just black kittens inside this lounge that people could walk in and adopt. And it's not purely black cats, but it is, they're all these cats are up for adoption or fostering through a local organization called Kitten Rescue. And it's probably one of the most popular spots during the show. People just want to go inside for 5 or 10 minutes and just play with kittens and cats. It's, there are kitten and cat lounges around the country now. I think when we started this, they were just starting to become a thing. But still, every year there's a giant line to come inside, to just sit down and pet cats at a horror convention. And they end up, I think last year all the cats they did bring were adopted. So it does serve a great service. And I try to avoid the room because every time I go in, I definitely want to take home a couple cats.
And I believe it's gotten so popular that I think you need a reservation. You need to go sign up for a reservation or a return time or something, which is
Yeah,
really
we have
wild.
we last year Pluto TV came in as a sponsor, and if you purchased a special Pluto pin and all the money went back to Kitten Rescue, it would get you in first. It was a VIP pass, and so many of those sold, it was really hard for people who didn't buy a pin to get in. So it did require donation, but at the end of the day, we're proud to be able to help this organization, and hopefully, because they do everything from adoptions and fostering to helping to take in cats and get them spayed or neutered as well, and keep that population down, and with the population that is there, to keep them fed and taken care of.
Yeah, we should add that, you just mentioned, a small donation was kind of like a VIP pass to this, but like everything we're talking about, or almost everything we're talking about here, whether it's the Screaming Room or the Hall of Shadows, this is all included in your admission to the event, which
Yeah.
is really great because nobody enjoys an upcharge. Take note, Disney. Anywho, let's move on. Oh, panels. This is my jam. This is my favorite part of any convention I go to. I like to sit and listen and see these folks who do these amazing things tell their stories. And yeah, talk a little bit more about the panels. And I don't know, I consider it kind of like a main attraction of Midsummer Scream, but maybe that's just me. What do you think, David?
It's definitely the one we put the most, I would say personally, put the most time into, is uh, creating and curating and managing really fun conversations or talks people can come to with experts or celebrities on a certain topic, from horror films to some aspect of haunted attractions or ghost stories or anything. And in this slide, I mean, this is something, obviously you picked this one because you weren't able to necessarily enjoy this panel because you're up there in the far left there moderating it, but it's the cast and crew of Hocus Pocus coming up. And we're in LA. So, I mean, what makes being in LA nice is we're able to get the creators and the cast sometimes for things that we just love. And here, you have producer, you have the writer, you have the writer, star, production design. Like it's such a cool lineup of people that can give really good insight into the things we love that you won't find elsewhere.
Yeah, trust me, I certainly was able to enjoy this, even though I wasn't in the audience here. But yeah, if you look on the far left is me. Next to me is David Kirshner. He's the creator producer of Hocus Pocus. Next to him is Laura Birch, who starred in the film. Next to her is Mick Garris, who is the screenwriter. Next to him is John Debney, who wrote the score. Next to him is Bill Sandell, who is the production designer. And cut off on the far right there is Tony Gardner, who is the special effects and makeup artist for the film. So I mean, like, that's a huge lineup. And frankly, like before putting this panel together, I didn't know any of these people. So I definitely enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And I love the panels. And a lot of them are, we talked about, it's about celebrating what Southern California has to offer for the holiday. So theme parks are like a big part of it, right? So like Halloween Horror Nights, Six Flags Magic Mountains, Fright Fest, and Knott's Scary Farm. And I always think of that as kind of the origins of the event.
The theme
Would you
parks,
agree?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. It definitely
yeah,
was sort of the incentive was to create, in television, they would have, it's less now, but the upfronts where they would show a peek of what was coming, the upcoming season to advertisers. And that concept definitely inspired what Midsummer Scream is to provide a preview of the upcoming Halloween season, but for fans.
yeah. Now, folks, I do want to remind you, if you have questions that you want to ask David, be sure to put them in the Q&A box, not the chat, and we'll get to that toward the end of the discussion. But since we're talking about panels, shall we announce a panel, David? What do you think?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, let's announce a panel happening this year at Midsummer Scream. We have, boom, rocking with Beetlejuice, a Universal Studios Beetlejuice Graveyard Review reunion. If you are a fan of Universal Studios theme parks, perhaps you remember the Beetlejuice Graveyard Review that went through many iterations, many different names throughout its many years at Universal Studios. And we're getting together a nice group, a director producer, as well as a lot of performers. And they haven't seen each other in a long time. And I know they're excited for it. I'm personally excited for it. And David, I know you said you never got to see it live in person, sadly.
No, just through YouTube.
Oh, well, it's something
Yeah, this
special,
is
I'll
really
tell you
cool.
that.
I mean,
That's
this is
come.
really cool because I mean, our crowd, and I just, you know, not to be talking too much about Midsummer, but just there's such a huge fandom, just around theme parks in general. So I think, you know, people love to hear how this goes together. This is great, 'cause even for people who, if they're not into the haunted houses, they just might love live shows at theme parks, or might like to see how live shows are, you know, live performances are put together in general, outside of a typical stage, which is also awesome. But it just hits a lot of, I think it's just going to connect with a lot of audiences.
Yeah, and one of the big panels for the weekend is Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, which I believe is taking place on the Sunday, right?
Hmm.
This year.
Yes.
And so, okay, so that'll be Sunday and this will be Saturday. So, hey, if you're a Universal Studios fan, you are getting the representation from all directions on both days. So it'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. Another thing that's part of the event is the party, Saturday night party at Midsummer Scream. So this is kind of after the convention ends for the day. And that room that was full of 2,000 chairs and sitting there watching these panels now becomes an awesome party with a DJ. And one of the things I really want to talk about in regard to the panel is I know you're very insistent on party only content that exists. So this isn't just regular stuff that you could do during the daytime after hours. This is really stuff you're only going to get if you attend the Midsummer Scream After Dark party. And I should add, this does have an add-on price to it, or it's included if you get one of the VIP ticket options.
Yeah.
But talk a bit about like your I don't want to say adamant because that sounds like a bad word, but you are adamant about like, no, this is unique entertainment only available to this. Yes, the streaming room's open, but you're going to be seeing something that you're only going to see during the party. And I love that about the party.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes some of the guidelines I set up internally for, you know, managing the event and directing our awesome crew and staff is sort of just to challenge ourselves creatively. So by saying the Friday night party, or sorry, the Saturday night party needs to be totally different, it pivots our brains a little bit. So we were able to play off of the themes from the weekend. I think from this year, we had a lot of haunted mansion 50th anniversary year.
Yeah.
So we had a panel about the haunted mansion, but the Grim Grinning Gala, but some of the content we had going on was not anything that people could experience during the day. Also, it makes the party special. So if we have things that are happening there that you're not going to see during the day, it's going to get people to go. And or regardless, they're going to appreciate that it's special just for them.
Do you happen to, I don't even know if you'll want to say this, so feel free to say, I'm not answering that. But do you know what percentage of people come for like the entire weekend? Because I should mention, like, there's a Saturday night party because there are people flying in from all over the country, perhaps even world, to attend this event. And so it's like, somebody's going to fly in for this. We got to make sure they're entertained for an entire weekend. It's a lot of people that spend the entire weekend, I believe, right?
I, it's hard to tell because I mean I can tell how many people buy a weekend pass or the VIP weekend, or people who come and they'll buy multiple, they'll come buy 2 different days. But I see the same people throughout the weekend, but exactly how many, I don't know. I would say it's anywhere from a quarter to a third of the people spend the entire weekend there. Um,
Wild.
and you know, I, on one hand, I totally get it. I mean, I go to conventions, and that's what's great sometimes about a multi-day convention, whatever it is you can go for a few hours because it can be sensory overload. I mean, there are other great, I go to there's a big Halloween trade show made for professionals called Trans World. And I go to that. I have to go the whole weekend because you're in there for 2 or 3 hours and you're just wiped because there's just so much to see, so much sensory overload. So you go for 3 hours, then you go back to your hotel room, take a nap, maybe go out to dinner, come back the next day for a few hours. And also with a show like Midsummer or a lot of these, other cons, but especially Midsummer, the stuff you want to do maybe spread out those particular panels and presentations, and you can't do everything in a day. And just writing off of that, like conceptually too, with Midsummer, is I do try to think of it as if it's a theme park for a weekend. So I know if people go to Disney World or Universal or any of the other theme parks, very often they want to go multiple days because there simply is no way to do everything in a day, and actually enjoy it. So it's all deliberate.
Now, we touched on this next thing a little bit, but I do want to talk about how there really is content for all ages at Midsummer Scream, no matter what kind of area of Halloween you love. It's kind of amazing how much, I mean, obviously kids love Halloween, but like there are also kids that love horror. You've seen the little monsters running around. Like you'll see kids dressed as Michael Myers. It's quite hilarious and adorable, but you lean into this whole gearing toward kids stuff. You definitely create content specifically for that.
Yeah, I mean, and partly it wasn't really an initial goal. I mean, it's horror. We have a lot of gore. It's a scary event. I didn't want to really have to ever feel the need to tame it down or create any barriers to protect, people who are maybe not so into it. But the crowd that did show up sort of demanded it. They were bringing their kids, and a lot of the kids that would come, like, and when I say kids, I mean like, children under the age of 10, especially, they do love a lot of the horror stuff. They like to see how this gory makeup is made. I think it helps them probably, they understand it's fantasy, but there's also the kids who don't. And so they want, they want to come and maybe have some entertainment that's just on the lighter side. So we have an area called the Paranormal Pixies Pumpkin Patch, and we have everything there from, we have really fantastic performers like Bob Baker's Marionette Theater and Buster Balloon, who are just, world-class entertainers coming out doing sets just for these kids, story readings from authors, that range. Just some internationally selling, best-selling kids book authors come out an event of the show, and they'll read for an hour to nonstop crafts. So we also have a place that the kids can kind of go and not necessarily be afraid that some creature is going to stalk them.
And then of course there are the kids who love that stuff as well. But yes,
Oh, absolutely.
there's stuff for all ages to do at Midsummer Scream. One thing I want to talk about that I know, it's kind of fashionable these days to make, events and businesses diverse. And I just know for you personally, like it's very important to you. This is not a fashionable business move. And I want to talk to you a bit about that because I think it's admirable how much you strive for diversity and representation at Midsummer Scream.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of the inspirations of the format for the event was doing social impact themed events and seeing how they were done. And the events I saw, they basically found something that people cared about, like a core theme, and then they would build and invite everybody who had a stake in that particular issue. They would all come together and work together and create cool stuff. And it was just creatively, it was really neat. And for Midsummer, some of it just happens naturally. We've had a drag show for this says Return of the Living Drag 2, but this will be our third Midsummer Scream. They're going to have a drag show coming in, and it's definitely something where it was pitched and it sounded great, and the drag community loves horror, so it just seemed like a natural fit. But I think I'm extra inspired to do that by seeing this community sometimes being criticized just for being who they are, and I just don't dig that. And Halloween to me is all about diversity and acceptance of the weirdos, so to speak, and because we're not really weirdos, and to me, but we are weird from the norm very often, and that can cover a lot of ground. But yeah, we have people on our team come up with ideas, and I love it. I think it's great to put a focus on different communities that don't necessarily get the same attention, or people don't realize how big a part of the overall Halloween or horror community they are, like Satanic Hispanics. You know, the trans community is really big and supportive of us. So if we can return that that support, I'm definitely all for it. I'm very proud of doing that.
Excellent. Now, through the years, we've had a lot of big names come through, some horror icons like Elvira. But as I've mentioned a couple times, it was really about like the Southern California haunt stuff to begin. But as the years have passed, Hollywood has definitely taken notice of Midsummer Scream, and we're getting more and more kind of, big studio movies as part of the event. And I'm kind of curious, is that something you always wanted, or is this something that happened more organically where they were reaching out to you when they kind of discovered Midsummer Scream?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, I think everybody has their favorite horror film and they get excited by having the creators of horror films come to the show. And so we're really particular uh, about who we have and try not to have too much of that because it is such a common, there are plenty of fantastic horror conventions that feature talent and celebrities. And we're like, that's not what our main focus is. But at the same time, we do have a crowd that does love that. And selfishly, sometimes there's people we want to meet and we're really excited to have. I mean, Black Phone is, one of my favorite horror films in a few years. Megan was just a blast. And then Monster High, we had a lot of people in our several people who come to the event who kept asking for us to do something with Monster High. We thought, okay, that's it's something that I haven't really seen at these other horror conventions. Definitely not Monster High. You'll see that typically at more anime or Comic Con type stuff. So it sort of varies. There's no real rule to that, but definitely it's fun to have them there.
Very cool. Now, David, I want to talk about some more like general Halloweeny stuff with you. And I want to talk to you about the importance of Halloween because I know that you are like an advocate. I mean, you literally will wear buttons, just any time of year that'll say like, keep Halloween October 31st or save trick or treating. And I love that about you. And I'd just love to hear kind of like your thoughts on those things.
Oh, I love Halloween. I think I mean I grew up, in the 70s and 80s and Satanic Panic became a thing. And, my mom was pretty tolerant, but she was concerned. She's like, if I was into, horror movies or a Ouija board, she wasn't sure if I should be. She didn't know what was going to happen, but it's because of all the hype. And other parents I knew wouldn't let their kids watch horror or anything spooky. They wouldn't be allowed to do stuff. They'd be afraid of what was happening on Halloween night. They wouldn't be allowed to go trick or treating because of fear of razors. And it was all kind of silly, and all that stuff, looking back now, that, was not there's no reason to be concerned about that based on anything that actually happened. And so to me, that's a big part of why, I really support making Halloween a thing. It sort of is a chance to sort of make people just enjoy, life a little bit more. Another aspect of it is, Halloween is a macabre themed holiday, and I don't, I'm a death positive person, I guess, and I think people, are better if they kind of take a breath and realize, everybody will pass away, and don't be afraid of what's going to happen in 100 years, but just enjoy things that are happening now because that's going to happen to all of us. So it's kind of, if anything, let's look at what that could be and kind of laugh at it because we have no control over it.
Yeah. And what was the whole October 31st thing? Though we're trying to change it to like the Saturday night before October 31st, just for,
Yeah,
I guess,
yeah. The
convenience with work, right?
I think it's the Halloween Costume Association is a big organization, and it's a great organization, but on this point they're totally wrong. They were advocating to change it to a Saturday night because they thought it would be safer for kids. I don't understand why it would be. I mean, it's Halloween's a pretty safe event, and a safe night to go trick or treating. But they try to change it to make Saturdays, make it more uniform, make it easier on everybody, and definitely not for that. I think that's part of the fun of any holiday is you don't know a day of the year except for Thanksgiving, but nobody's doing Thanksgiving conventions yet. But you don't know what day of the year it's going to fall on. it breaks up the monotony of your typical year, and it's never, every 7 years it's the same day, but it's still, it's kind of fun to have it vary. And if that means that the next day kids are going to show up at school, a little wired from all the sugar, or it's a couple of days of distraction, well, that's life. That's part of fun. That is what makes our culture our culture. And I love it.
Yeah, and there may not be a Thanksgiving convention, but there is a Thanksgiving horror movie, and I'm a big fan
Yes.
personally. I like it a lot. Now, Midsummer Scream, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been at the Long Beach Convention Center since its first year. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay,
Correct.
so and it has certainly grown. I know at the beginning, we weren't using the entire convention center. At this point, we pretty much
No.
are. But I'd love to talk a little bit about Long Beach and how, like, to me, I feel like it's become the home of Midsummer Scream. Do you feel similarly? And if so, like, why do you feel like it's such a good fit for this particular event?
I mean, if the venue itself is just unique. It's an odd shape. It has dark ceilings. A lot of conventions are a little bit brighter, so it kind of lends itself more to what we're doing and making the event itself. When you get into the show floor, it feels like it's nighttime. There's no mistaking you're in a dark environment, and that makes that part very different. Geographically, I think more from a marketing aspect, it works great because we're in a cool spot where we're like near Anaheim and more Southern California, deeper Southern California, and at the same time we're close to Central LA and Hollywood, and then we get a large crowd that goes all the way out to Riverside in the Inland Empire. It just feels like a very central location for this. I think this base of the Southern California base of people who love Halloween. Um, and the convention center itself is great. The staff is fantastic, and a lot of their staff every year they tell us it's their favorite show, and which I'll take. And I love to hear that. If you hear that the security guard you see year after year is just like excited to be back for this particular event, that's always encouraging as well.
Very cool. And we should mention in Long Beach is the Queen Mary, the ghostly ship. So we can actually see it from the Long Beach Convention
Yeah,
Center. It's just
yeah,
right
definitely
across the water.
the most haunted ship in the world. It's right there. People who come to Midsummer can stay on it, and to Uber or drive back and forth each day. It's a lot of fun.
Very cool. I want to talk to you about conventions in general because they seem to be popping right now. I know, Disney's
Yeah.
convention sold out at a rate that is way faster than it ever has before. Midsummer Scream doing very well so far this year, and we're still a couple months away. And just conventions everywhere seem to be popping.
Yeah.
And I'd love to kind of hear your theories on that.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is like shopping malls have died. The retail experience is just not where it was. And I think the same sort of gravitation people would have to going to malls or to go out shopping are kind of now alive with conventions or pop markets. So even like farmers markets, in a similar way, people like to go out and they do like to be social, whether they want to admit it or not. Even if they're not going to talk to anyone, they like to go out and feel life while they're doing something. And on top of that, with like a convention like ours, or most conventions, the shopping experience is fun. It's tangible, and that you can not only touch stuff, but you're going to find things that you wouldn't elsewhere. And I think back to when I was a kid and how much I loved shopping malls. And that was the fun part. You have all these different cool things you could look around, and even if you're going to buy them, it would just be fun to see them. And then you're going to bump into your friends. eh, you know, and then the added bonuses with with fan conventions, whether it's horror or anime or comic book or sci-fi. um that when you're going to go there, you're going to be among like-minded people, nobody who's questioning your fandom or the things you love. It's other people who love it. And so you feel, I don't know, I think it helps the endorphins. It really makes you feel valued and normal to a degree. So
Yeah, people take it really seriously, their fandoms. And I just thought of this story as you were saying that, where, I was working on the party one year and I got an email from a guest who wanted to propose to his future wife at the party. Were you in the room for this? I can't remember, David. This was
I don't
during
recall.
the I think it was during the Grim Grinning Gala. And so, I arranged it so that he could do this proposal, and I still get messages from the guy. And he like he credits me for his marriage. And I'm like, bro, I had nothing to do with it. But it's quite funny. So these fandoms, they take them very, very seriously, and it does, like, it feels like home to them when something that big is happening there. So
Yeah.
it's very cool. I want to know what you're doing the moments before the doors open for the opening minute of Midsummer Scream each year. I have a feeling it might be frantically running around, but I'm curious if you have a bit of a tradition or if you take a moment to enjoy it. But what are you doing and feeling at that moment?
I mean, which particular moment before? If it's like, I think if it's like an hour or 30 before, I'm just checking in with our team. We have a fantastic team. I shouldn't be doing anything at that point. I'm just checking in occasionally. They okay? Is everything good? Um, and tend to be hanging out in the lobby where some media has shown up, and some of our guests might be inside a little bit early, and just keeping an eye on it, just to double check. But our team tends to have things handled, and I'm very insistent that every year that nobody opens the doors without my go ahead. So I'm the one who's like, okay, go for it. Make the call. Drop the rope, so to speak. In theme park terms. And but in terms of other traditions, opening day each year, I wear socks that are branded with uh, my friend Matt Setlick, who passed away a few years ago, who became a big part of the event and support staff. But I always wear his socks as a good luck. And then that's it. I mean, it's always it can be a stressful time because we're trying to make sure everybody's ready, from the vendors to make sure that their booths are clean and there's no obstructions in the aisleways, to making sure that there's no other logistical or security issues going on. But every year we've pretty much opened right on time. If a couple minutes behind is just because we were double checking something.
I did not know the story about Matt's socks. That's really lovely. I love that. So what is the most difficult part of doing this event, and what's the most fun part for you?
The difficult part is keeping up the energy of handling all the small things. We have 300 vendors. We have about 40 hours of entertainment. We've got hundreds of speakers, guests, and performers. Um, Everything we do has like a bit of art to it, a bit of copy to be written, something to be promoted, and trying to just keep that momentum up with the invites and making sure people have what they have with what they need. And in some cases, making sure the proper people are promoted, because we want people to know that they're there. And sometimes you want to promote them to make sure that they know that they're being promoted. Understandably, it's their time. Keeping just, not getting burnt out is really a challenge. So I have found it's really important to make it a goal to like 6 o'clock each night to close the laptop. It doesn't matter how crazy things are. Be like, okay, maybe make a list of what to do the next morning and go for a hike or go for dinner or watch something, just to keep that, because that energy, if you get stressed out, it tends to collapse on itself like a black hole. So you don't want to ever get to that point. But really, generally, keeping up that energy through the whole process is, yeah, especially in the seventh year, is always a challenge. But that's the hardest part. There's not one particular thing otherwise that's really all that hard.
I need to take the 6 p.m. note. I am terrible at that. It takes a lot to get me away from the computer when there's a pile of stuff to
And,
do.
and I think like you, I really enjoy this stuff. So sometimes I break that rule because I'm enjoying doing the floor layout or creating some art or having a phone call. So it's not always true, but I mean, I do try to do that unless there's a critical need or really just having a blast. I mean, if I'm having fun, I'm not going to stop. But if it's something else, I might stop, close the laptop at 6.
And what's the most fun part?
Um, Working with people like you, Jeff, really
Oh,
is the most part. It's seeing, through the years we built up a fantastic team. Doing it for the fans is like, and seeing how happy they are at the event is really important. But there's something even more important to keep you going year round, to have this team of people who keep coming back to help out, whether it's just the weekend of, staff, to people who just want to come in and help make this great event for everyone. It created a great community unto itself. And so that's the best part. That keeps us, we do other side events periodically throughout the year. And if we're not doing one for a while, I get the itch and get a little lonely. It's definitely my social life very often, as well as my work life, kind of crisscross a bit, but working with this crew is the best part.
Excellent. Well, we got about 9 minutes left, so I'm going to hop into the Q&A. Sarah Hops asks, what is an offering that was initially planned for the event but never saw the light of day? Oh gosh, I have some of my own.
Oh,
There are so many ideas that I'll let you answer, but there are so many.
I mean, I don't want to say anything because there's nothing that we have been excited about doing that hasn't happened that I still don't think can happen,
I was going to
if that
say, I
makes
feel like
sense.
everything, I know everything like that I've pitched that hasn't happened yet, that you were like, yeah, let's go for it. Like, I plan on doing it in the
It
future.
could
So
still
we're not gonna,
happen. It could
yeah,
still
we're not
happen.
gonna answer
I
that,
think
Sarah. Sorry.
I think there's been like guests that have passed away and they were kind of like, oh, I wish we could have gotten them and had them
Okay,
do stuff
who's
with
one?
us. I
Anyone
mean,
pop to mind?
I don't know if it would have ever happened, but I really wanted to at some point do a whole Pee Wee Herman convention
Paul
with
Rubens.
Paul
I knew
Rubens'
you were gonna
involvement.
say that.
Uh,
Yeah.
Um, and it may not have ever happened, but but when I had the connections there, at least to possibly do it, so that was pretty cool. But no, I mean, there's certain things we're sort of limited on by the space. Maybe doing some outdoor activations, but it's LA and it's summer. You don't know how it's going to be. Um, yeah, I don't think there's
Not
any.
because of rain, because of heat.
Yeah,
These New
I'd have to.
England folks watching are like, oh, how terrible. The sun.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I had more time, I could probably give an example of something, but because it's a great question, but I don't wouldn't want to say anything if I'm still going to do it in the future.
Absolutely.
So somebody's
Alexander,
groaning in
eh,
Massachusetts.
growing
Why?
in Massachusetts. Yep, because we're
Because
talking about the terrible summer weather in California. Oh man, hilarious.
oh,
Alexander
but
wants to
I
know.
don't. Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
never mind. Go ahead. What Alexander?
Wants to know, is there something, an idea you wish you could do or offer at Midsummer Scream that, due to the sheer scale of the event, simply aren't unable to do? Hmm.
I don't think so. I don't think we've really been limited on stuff. I mean, there's certain things that it's hard for us to like have escape rooms or to do anything super small and intimate, because when you have tens
Hmm.
of thousands of people in an event, if you do something like that, that means like 0.01% of the crowd can do it and everybody else is going to be upset. So, there's certain interactions that may happen like that anyway, but I would never deliberately go about promoting something that I didn't think that a decent chunk of people could do somehow.
Yeah. Of all the years of Midsummer Scream, was there a favorite theme that you've done so far?
Um, I think artwork wise, every year I'm blown away by the artwork and I like it. And I like it more than the last year. And it's not because it's better, but it's just because it's fresh and I like new. And this year I'm really excited because we're usually really into having this vintage look that can be done with 2 or 3 colors, because we can do screen printing on it with 3 colors. Um, but this year I wanted to do it to make it look like it was these vintage pulp paperbacks. And my first choice artist, I reached out to her and she said yes, she'd do it. And I was kind of stunned because she's so good. So I really love that. And the themes, hauntings and ghosts. We have some haunting and ghost stuff. We were really hoping to get more of a named ghost hunter to come out. It just wasn't in the cards for us this year. So in terms of like how the theme has come together this year, I don't think in that level it's there. I think honestly the year we did Tiki as a theme was probably the year that it really worked out the best. We had a whole Tiki, walk through. We had a Tiki bar, like a spooky Tiki bar. We had a panel by Bill Root about like monsters from Tiki culture and horror. And it was so weird and different. It was fun creatively to see how that came together, and it excited some people. On the flip side, after we did that year, people on our team were like, let's do something a little more in tone with horror and Halloween, because Tiki was too weird for them. And I'm like, I get it. And so I think the next time we did an event, it was definitely more of a classic or, classic comic book horror theme. And Austin Pardue did our art for that year, and it was fantastic and awesome as well.
I think I would argue, I think Haunted Mansion was a really strong theme year as well. I remember there being like a one
Yeah,
whole lane on the show floor that was like all Haunted Mansion because there's so many Haunted Mansion vendors out there and stuff. But I feel like that was a really strong year with a great panel and the themed party and stuff.
panel is great. The party, I think if you're a Haunted Mansion fan, it was fantastic content. I think the
Yeah,
only reason I wouldn't bring that one up, because you're right, it did work out creatively. I think that's an easier reach because those people are already out there. It didn't really, we didn't have to work too hard to pull that together. You worked hard on it for sure, and all the panelists, everybody who worked on it hard. But I'm just saying, for us creatively internally, everything kind of came to us pretty easy.
sure. Did Midsummer Scream start at the convention hall? We talked about that. Yes, it did. Or did it grow? Can you talk about elements that were added or needed to adapt as you grew? So yeah, so it's been in the Long Beach
Oh
Convention
yeah,
Center since the beginning. What have we done with all of the new space,
I mean
really?
the first year we did it in one hall, called Hall A, and I think it was but 85, 90,000 square feet. And the Hall of Shadows is behind a curtain that we dropped down in the middle and divided the room up. And I think next year, or it was 2 years, I forget the exact right now, but we ended up moving halls, and eventually we put the Hall of Shadows into its own 75, 80,000 square foot hall that's just for in the dark. We turn off all the overhead lights. And so it's grown that way over the years, where we have taken up pretty much the full footprint of the convention center itself. Um, and it's we need more room still. Does that answer the question? Was there another aspect of that? I
You
mean,
know, it was just I was kind of curious, like, God, we have so much more space. It's just more. It's kind of more of what we have. It's more panels. You know, there's when we say panels, there's like a main stage. I forget the exact names, but there's the ballroom stage. There's two big stages. There's like a podcast studio. There's tons of breakout rooms. This is not like one room that is panels only. There's like, I don't know, a dozen or so rooms at least being activated constantly. So
I mean, the Hall of we have a haunted attraction called Casa Calaveras, which is a Day of the Dead themed walkthrough. It's not scary. It's black light, just beautiful. If you love Dia de los Muertos type stuff, that one moved from the Hall of Shadows into its own breakout room. And then we've got stages that are intended for performances, and three that are just for conversations. We have the Grand Ballroom, presented by Halloween Shirt Company, just throwing a little sponsor tag there, because they're awesome. Then we have the Promenade Stage, which seats about half that, but it's still like 750 people. And then our podcast room, which seats, 350, 500. So all the rooms are pretty big. And that's just to accommodate the crowd.
yeah.
And most of the rooms throughout the day. And then we've got two classrooms. We just have, we use up every inch of the venue with different types of content.
Virginia is dying to know what poster is behind your head, David. So those are vinyl records, and we've got Beetlejuice. I don't know what's next to Beetlejuice, and then the Sounds and Shivers. So what are they? What's between next to Beetlejuice? Halloween what?
It's a Kay Dennings Halloween album.
Oh,
It's like
okay.
a kid's album. It has a song, I think it's just called Halloween, but it's spelled HALLOWEN, spells Halloween. Kind of a song
Okay.
that Halloween aficionados know. The rest
Yeah.
of the
So
album, not so great, but and then yeah, Sounds to Make You Shiver, which is more sound effects. And then Dark Shadows soundtrack, the original, like the thing I grew up with, which is the what you can't see them right now. Do you want me to pull them down,
oh,
or is it looking
sorry.
bad there?
Sorry. Nope, sorry.
Didn't know if
They're-
you're trying to go for something else there. Do you want me to pull those down? The classic Disney album, which I grew up with, definitely had an influence on my Halloween love and horror love. And I haven't listened to it yet, but it's just called Sleep No More. It's ghost story readings.
Very nice. Well, we are running out of time here, folks. The place to go to learn more and get tickets for this July is midsummerscream.com. The place to hear more of me, if you're so inclined, is podcastnetwork.com, that Halloween podcast. So, David, thank you so much for being here. Mina, welcome back. And that's going
Yeah,
to do it for this month.
that's
Yeah,
right. And I
thanks, Mina, for
apologize.
having me.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. I'm gonna have to hit California, but I did want to apologize for getting the name of this Midsummer Scream wrong, but because next month we are talking with Michael Perrone of Scream Fest
Fest.
Cool.
Yes.
up in Canopy Lake Park. So for you locals, that's for you. But in the
Fun.
meantime, this is fabulous. Thank you so much, David, for taking your time. And Jeff, the series is, of course, horrifyingly wonderful.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody.
Have a
Thank you,
good
everyone.
everyone. Oop, trying to end it.